What is up, YouTubers and lovers of budget cars and bikes? Welcome back to another video for 2020. And yes, we finally managed to get the last of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. If you've been watching my videos for a while now, or been subscribed to the channel for a while, you'll know that that's what I call the 4 big muscle bikes that I really wanted to try out, as part of this whole budget bucket list thing, to try out all these kind of, not 80s muscle bikes, but kind of retro feel of the 80s muscle bikes, as it were. And we've done the CB1300, the black and red, the SP version of that. If you haven't checked out that video, we'll stick a link up here somewhere. And we also did, I'll just tell you about the XJR as well, just very so briefly. I found that to be very, very, very vibrational. There was some comments on there about why that was and how to cure that. So maybe if you've got one or you're thinking about buying one, it might be an idea to check that out. And then we got ourselves I got myself a ZRX 1200 in the Eddie Lawson kind of livery, as it were. The green with a purple stripe down it. Again, I'll stick a card up here somewhere with a link to that if you're interested in one of those. Again, great bike. I mean, out of the 4 of these kind of genre of bikes, that's the one with the biggest horsepower. That's the one that always tends to come out on top when they do a comparison of these bikes. It's always a ZRX 1200 that they seem to kind of, all the what do you call it, the pundits, should we say, the reviewers, they all seem to like that one over the others, the other one being, of course, the GSX 1400, which is a review I did this year. And again, I'll stick a little card up here for that if you haven't seen that. The blue and white, of course. And then I'll tell you what I think about the GSX 1400 in a second after we again, as I said, there's a card up there for you to have a look at that anyway. And then finally this turned up. Now this was relatively local, about 10 miles away, guy my kind of age, and he'd found himself a new love interest, shall we say, in the Philippines. He was selling up everything and this was the last thing to go, I think, and he offered me a deal which I thought was fair. Now bearing in mind, these CB1300s in the white and the black, the white and the red, they do command far more money from what I've seen than the other colours. You can buy a black one or a grey one. There's all sorts of colours of these out, but generally speaking, it's the white and the red, the one you want. That's the one. Just like the GSX 1400, it's the blue and white. The XJR, they do the SP, and the SP is the one you want, really, with the kind of Yamaha block racing stripe down the side of the tank there. And the ZRX, you want that in the Eddie Lawson colours as well. And as I said, this one you want it in the red and the white, or the white with the red flash, as it were. And it came up and I just thought, well, look, I've been wanting one to kind of complete the collection, as it were. Not that I've got the other bikes, of course, but this is the only one I've got at the moment. So I picked it up. They're not cheap. You're looking between $3,500 to $5,000, believe it or not, for one of these. Now this is a 2004, so it's kind of right smack bam in the middle. I've seen there's a 2008s, 2009s for sale around about $4,500, but they're black, or they're grey, or they're red, or they're other colours, and they tend to be around about 20, 30, 40,000 miles. So when this came along to me at around about £4,000 with 6,000 miles, actually less than that, 5,850 miles, I had to have it. It is, as you can see, absolutely pristine condition. There's no aftermarket bits on there apart from this kind of transformer type styly kind of a cockpit fairing there. But to be quite honest, it's not been tinted, it just came like that. It's got a very subtle tint, it's made for the bike, it's very good quality and it does the job. I've just been down the motorway now, just this little bit of dual carriageway down there, and it does the job really, really well. I'm 6'1", 6 foot thereabouts, and it blows the wind right over my head. I was really shocked that a little bikini fairing like that could do that, but it does it really, really well. Original mirrors, original rear end. I haven't hacked away like I did on the XJR 1300 and I got slagged off for. I've learnt my lesson with that one. It's got the original exhaust. Everything on it is as it should be, stock, original indicators, and that's one of the reasons I wanted it. The guy told me that he bought it from a dealership up in Birmingham, and I saw the receipt for $5,000, and he bought it because it was completely stock, and I'm going to keep it exactly as it is. There is a little bit of engine kind of pitting down here, which you would expect. The tops have been polished. The forks are fine. I've just started now, as you can see on these yoke clamps here, it starts up here as well. I've just started to sand these off with 2000 wet and dry. I'll polish these back up tomorrow or later on today and they'll come up like new. If you saw the GSX 1400 video, you'll see it's actually not that difficult a job. There's a little bit on this casing here as well. Not a great deal though, when I could do it again, but I don't think it really needs it now. It's one of those jobs that if you're going to do it when it gets to the point where you think, shit, I've really got to do that now. It's got this smart water forensic science thing, which I have seen on a few of these old Hondas. Not sure what that's about. I was going to take the stickers off, but I'm not going to. I imagine it came from the dealer like that, as you know, with all these stickers on the tank as well. People tend to take those off. I'm leaving them on there. I'm just going to leave it exactly as it is, and just to prove the mileage, he says 85 degrees, 5,847 miles. I mean, that's just, I'm not going to bother starting it up. Well, maybe I will in a minute. I mean, it's just, it doesn't sound much, to be honest. On that note, I did actually have an old Delkovich can, a carbon fibre one, so I ordered a link pipe for the CB1300, thinking that I could just quite easily, I mean, the link pipe was 35 quid, slot the link pipe in there like so, bring it up, strap it up with the Delkovich, happy days. And it did, apart from the fact that the link pipe was about 2 or 3 mil all round, too bloody big. So it needed a gasket. He sent out a gasket which was broken on arrival. I tried to pad it out with some aluminium tape, and it just looked like gash. You know, there was air kind of gaps in there and everything else, and I thought, screw this, let's just leave it as it is. You know, if I was keeping it, I would get a nice Delkovich or GPR system for it, because it sounded awesome with an end cam with no baffling. It sounded absolutely beautiful. I will start it up actually, guys, because if I don't, you'll probably only bitch at me anyway. Bear with me a second, guys. I forgot it was in gear, so bear with me on that one, because obviously I had to put the phone down, pull the clutch in, and then I had to take it out of gear because we're on a hill. So that's it. Basically, the CB1300 engine, quiet as a mouse, really smooth engine, and a really quiet exhaust as well. There's probably a way you could modify this, but again, why? You know, you don't need to. It takes away from its originality. It's got a little bit of an overrun burble on it as well, even with the stock can, to be honest. So that's fine by me. It has got a bit of an oily smell, so I'm going to give it an oil change. Service-wise, it's got some service stamps, obviously. It had the last one done at the dealer last year. I've got some oil and I've got a filter for it, because it's only the HF204, which is so generic, it's unbelievable. I've got a box full of them. So I'll give it a quick oil change when I get back today, now it's warmed up. But apart from that, as I said, 5,850 miles, totally stock, 2 owners, and I really like it. I just love the look of these old bikes, you know. Now, the question comes up, which one do I prefer out of the 4? The XJR 1300, the GSX 1400, the ZRX 12, or this CB 1300? I'll put them in order, actually, I think, really, because that's the way it's going to work for me. And the one I like the most, personally, is the GSX 1400. I love the way it looked. I love the way it felt underneath me. I love the way it rode. I love the way it sounded. It seemed far more retro than most of the others, in my opinion. I just think, generally speaking, it was, for me, the better of the 4. Secondly, I would probably go for the ZRX 1200, because it's a bit of an icon. It's a lovely colour. Again, it sounded great. It went great. Then probably the XJR, I would think. I mean, to be honest, it's a toss-up between the XJR and the CBR. The XJR 1300 and the CB 1300, and the toss-up is they're both incredibly vibrational. And I mean, I've just been out on this now, and it's really comfy. If you're doing 50-60 miles an hour, great, top gear, off your trot, 3,000 revs, no problem. It's when you get to 70, which is pretty much exactly what happened on the XJR. The vibration through your arse is just, it's uncomfortable. I mean, I can't imagine that you could ride for an hour and a half at motorway speeds with that kind of vibration going through your arse cheeks. You'd end up with the most terrible piles. So that's the thing that puts me off. I love this. I think is better on the motorway, generally speaking, in the way that it's more solid. It feels very planted underneath you. That bikini fairing does a great job. The XJR didn't have one, so perhaps if I put one on there, that would have made that, you know, this is third or fourth between the XJR. Maybe we'll call it a joint second, or joint third in that respect, you know, because we've got the GSX 1400, the ZRX, and then this and the XJR, I think, are so comparable that I'll just call them joint third in that respect. And that is subjective, of course, because it's just my opinion on, you know, how I feel about these bikes. There's only one thing I had to do, which I knew about straight away. Basically, you can probably see they always come up on the camera a lot more so than in real life. There was a little chip there. Now normally I wouldn't touch in these things, but because it was the white paint underneath, it really showed up, and I can't find one of these metallic red stickers anywhere. I've even tried Fowler's and places like that, and no one could offer me one for sale. And also it had no grab rail at the back. What it did have was this real funky kind of parcel shelf thing with an integrated kind of back support for the pillion that flipped up and flipped back down again. I didn't like it, so I found this one black off the Facebook page and I sprayed it white, and I think it looks a lot better. And again, it's more kind of stock then, isn't it, really, because that's how it would have come from the factory. And he also had the bolts for the bungee cords and stuff like that. As you can see, I mean, it is in extraordinary condition, really. There's a tiny bit of corrosion coming in on the shocks there, just on the springs part of that, which, if you remember, the XJR was very much the same, but much worse. I think a tiny little brush with a bit of silver amorite would just polish that straight out of there, basically. What else? Negative wise, nothing. I think personally the only negative on this bike for me as a bike is the vibration, and it's exactly the same as it was on the XJR 1300 in the respect that, you know, you get to 70 miles an hour and you wouldn't want to do it long distance because it's so uncomfortable. I mean, it really does vibrate right up through your arse end and your legs to a fashion as well. Not so much on the arms, and I think in hindsight the XJR was more through the hands than it was anywhere else. This one's more through the legs and the arse. You could get a better seat, I suppose. You could get a gel seat or pad that one, or have that one custom made, get a sergeant seat, something like that. But, you know, if I'm going to pick out a negative, that's it. I couldn't do 200 miles on this bike. You know, you'd get off and you'd have that real numb feeling you sometimes get through your nuts and you get it in your arse. And that's I don't understand it, because it is a 1300. I think it needs another gear. That's essentially what it's about. It's only a 5-speed manual, obviously manual, and I think a 6 gear would probably calm that down so you're more at 3,500 revs at motorway speed instead of 4,000. She will pick up her skirts though, this girl, between 50 and 70. You pull back that throttle and pin it and you're gone. You know, you're hitting 80 before you know it, although it does have a slight delay. I'm not sure if that's the mapping or something like that. It does have ever such a slight delay, but when it does kind of go, it's almost like a turbo lag, but it's so minuscule. I'm just being finicky, you know, it's so minuscule that you've probably not noticed. I just noticed it now because, you know, you kind of pull it back in top gear at 50 and it kind of goes, all right then, and then it's off. To be honest, that's all I've really got to say about this bike. I mean, if you want to check out the economy, that kind of stuff, you carry on, because quite frankly, I don't buy a 1300cc bike and then start worrying about economy. It's not what you do, is it? You want a scooter for that. You want to get yourself one of those Honda Bergmans or something if you're worried about miles per gallon. But I just think it's a stunning bike, and now I've had all 4 of the 4 that I wanted. There's probably another one out there, but this was the 4 that have always stuck in my mind, the ones I wanted to try. And as I said, I think if I was going to buy another one, if you offered me a choice, it would be the GSX 1400. That would be my go-to bike. Then probably the ZRX, and then lastly the XJR and this, and that's purely because of the vibration. If this didn't vibrate as much as it does, I'd have put this in probably second place, and that's just because I preferred the look of the GSX, because I think the way this rides is amazing. As I said, it's very, very, very planted. It gives you a lot of self-confidence, you know. Although it's a big girl, it doesn't feel that big, not like the GSX. I mean, that is a big girl, and it felt like a big girl, you know. This, although it's only 100cc smaller, it just, generally speaking, it feels much, much smaller. Even just sitting there like that, I don't know if it's because the stripes kind of point on a downward angle rather, it just makes it feel a bit smaller. The seat height is very small as well, as you can see from there, you know, so if you're a short ass, no problem at all with this. I'm 6'1" and I can flat foot this no problem at all. But when I took it for the MOT, because by the way it didn't have an MOT, well no it did, but it had 2 weeks left on it, so I took it straight in and it passed of course, no problem at all. When I took it there, the MOT guy sat on it and he's all of 5'7", 5'8", and he, you know, he could stand at a set of traffic lights, you know, no problem at all. And as I said, because the seat is actually quite low, maybe it's a modified seat, maybe that's the reason it vibrates so much. I don't know. I mean, if you've got one of these and it doesn't give you that arse vibration, let me know, because I'll be curious. This won't hang about because I didn't buy it to keep it forever. You know me, I never do. I was very, 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 very close to buying a Yamaha MT-10 2016. because I wanted to try one of those out as well, because they're 168 horsepower or something, and I just wanted to have a little mad moment on one of those. But the deal fell through. The guy couldn't do it that weekend, and I went to see this instead, and I just thought, screw it, no, I'll save myself a few grand and I'll get this, because I said this came into me around about 4 grand. I reckon it's probably worth 4.5. I've had to have it MOT'd, I've got to give it a service. So by the time I've done all that, I'm going to get my money back on it. And that's generally how I work. I like to buy a bike at a price that I can at least get my money back out of it if I decide I don't like it. And the only reason I don't like this is the vibration through the seat. Otherwise, I'd keep it for a while, because we're now in the 3rd week of June. Still in lockdown, but they just announced that they're going to open the pubs up on the 4th of July, which is good news. Not that I'm a drinker, but there you go. Another little angle for you there. So perfect time to sell a bike, I suppose, if the pubs are starting to open. People are starting to get back out there, as it were. Hopefully that won't have a resurgence of this lockdown and people can get back to some kind of normality. And hopefully I can sell this on. And then what I'm going to try to do, because another reason I didn't buy the MT10 was because prices are at summer levels and I don't have summer price level money kind of thing, So I'm going to look for another MT10 over the winter months when the prices go down a little bit, even by a few £100. I'm going to see if I can grab myself one of those, and obviously I'll bring you a review of that. So if you've got one of these, you've got any comments at all, you're thinking of getting one and you've got any questions, drop it in the comments section below. If you haven't subscribed, then consider doing that, and that's always appreciated. A thumbs up as well. No thumbs down, people, please. Thank you very much. We don't like thumbs down. That always pisses me off, as I'm sure you know. And as I said, if you've got one or you're thinking of getting one, just drop some comment or other in the comment section, and I always read them and I'll try to get back to you the same day as well. But this is my kind of thoughts, really, / review on the 2004 CB1300 Honda in the white and red, which is the only one to have. As I've said, you've got to have it in white and red. You can get a cheaper one in a different colour, but why would you? You'll always wish you had the white and red. Anyway, that's it. As I said, if you haven't subscribed, consider that. Give it a thumbs up. And you take care of yourselves, guys, and I'll see you in about 4 weeks with another review on whatever I have available at the time. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Take care now.